Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. What we're going to be doing tonight is a mixture of techniques, and we're creating a painting for a dear friend and a dear neighbour. Their favourite colour is green. I've created one painting thus far for that person, and what I would like to do this evening is just share this video with you as I make it. So, as I say, we're working through the green spectrum, and what I've got is quite a wide variety of colours. So we've got everything from a lime green, backing up to a hooker's green permanent hue with black within it, you know, to darken it off. We have a phthalo green. We have I believe this is I'm going to actually have to look. That's a fantastic start. This is a bright yellow green. My apologies, I want to make sure I call them out correctly. This one in particular is a light green permanent. And this one here is hooker's green without the black. So as you can see, we've got a good variety, and kind of in line with verdigris and, you know, that kind of feeling, we're going to introduce a copper metallic. So as you can see, we've got a broad variety of greens there, all kinds of intensities. And what we're going to do is, as I said, a mixed technique. So I'm going to do a ring pour and I'm going to do a dirty pour. Now, my neighbour really liked the picture that I did, but asked for more copper within it. So I'm going to make sure that we're trying to optimise how the copper shows through. Instead of it being kind of a subtle accent, I want it to constitute a lot of what we're actually doing here. So let's get started with the dirty pour cup. Now, the reason I'm going to start with this is because when I create a ring pour, I like to keep a slight angle on the cup as I'm actually filling it, so then I'm getting a consistent rundown and consistent layer build-up. When we're actually doing a dirty pour, there are times when, depending upon the fluidity, should I say the viscosity of the paint and the mix, it'll actually drop through and just penetrate. Rather than providing a layer, it actually penetrates in certain points, and that adds a little depth. But to me, there are two different methods of actually filling your cup. So let's start out and let's get through our friend, the dirty pour. So what do I want to see in terms of this, or what am I aspiring to see? Because again, the paint will do a lot of what it will actually do. I can control a bit, but not a lot. Now, every paint here has silicone oil added to it, with the exception of the copper. On a prior video, I did talk about metallics and my experience with metallic paints and silicone oil. I'm pleased to say that I created a largely metallic based paint, where I used silicone oil with the metallics, and I had no problem at all with the finish. So it was probably just a bad mix one time I actually did it. So what do we want to see in terms of our pour? So I'd like to see a dark bottom and see some of the lighter colours appearing through it. So I'm going to start out with the hookers and, whoop, there we go, the hookers and black. And I'm probably move into something really quite radical. So we're going to go with the light yellow green. And again, I'm just going to try and show you how I build it up. Within the middle of that, I'm going to darken up a little bit, and I'm going to put lime. Just, you see where I say it penetrates and it falls through, depending upon how you load it. And then I'm gonna go against that, and I'm gonna kind of start to add a little bit of the copper now. So you can see again a penetration, a fall through, and I'm gonna make sure that the copper is on the side of the cup. Why? Because then it's going to be prevalent through most layers. So we're going to start to add some contrasting greens now. And as you've seen before, I like to build these up in so many different ways. I don't really have a set pattern as to how I build these up. I like contrasts and things that, you know, obviously bring around kind of like a stark impression when it hits the canvas. Oh, time to get hold of our friend Phthalo. Beautiful colour when dried. And what we're aiming for on this one is to fill this one up to about the 16-ounce level. Now, I'm probably going to have an excess of paint on this, but I'll talk to you about volume of paint very shortly. Let's just continue to mix our cups. Perfect. Absolutely feeling this right now, which is awesome. Be very interested to see how this actually turns out. I always am. That's what keeps me creating different paintings, you know, time after time after time. Just to see what actually pokes through when the silicone does its job, and it's always interesting. Always very, very interesting. Now, should I need to mix any paint up on the fly? At the moment, I don't think so. I think we're looking pretty good from what I actually have pre-mixed. Always famous last words when we're doing this. But there we go. And I'm going to finish that off just with a drop of Phthalo. Perfect. Now we're going to apply this first to the canvas, but not right now. We're going to apply that first to the canvas. And then I'm going to pour around it. But what I want to introduce is a line of copper through it to kind of give me a little bit of a boundary or give me some sort of defining line. But again, we'll see what that looks like when we get there. Now, with the pouring cup, again, like I say, I like to, with the ring pour, I like to keep this at an angle. Just how tight we can actually get the circles as well tends to give you a variety of kind of striations or layers throughout it. If we pour it loose, we tend to end up with kind of loose circles. Whereas if we spend time trying to pour it real tight and maintain a rotation, you know, with our wrist in whatever direction, counterclockwise, clockwise, whatever feels great for us, then we tend to see, as I say, like a lot tighter layering of the paint. The silicone itself will obviously push through and give us variations in it, but let's see what we look like. Now on this one, what I want to do is end with lighter colours in the middle. So I'm going to start by pouring, there we go, the light yellow, green, as it were. Perfect. Then I'm going to put a little bit of lime in. Sound like I'm making a Mexican dish right now. And what I'm going to do is build up some contrast now, because I want to finish light, but I also want to have contrast within it. I don't want it kind of washed out and, you know, just appearing as though it's kind of lacking any depth or differentiation. Again, a little bit of phthalo. And you should be able to see now we're building up layers of colours within this. Our friend copper, let's make sure we feature quite heavily with copper. And I'm going to include some little layers of copper as we move forward here. And you can see that we're now starting to get differentiation between the layers as we're pouring in. And that angle just helps it to form. You know, you can see it developing there. It's kind of cool. One of my favourite little bits of actually doing this kind of pouring is to just play in terms of building layers up, you know, and seeing what the net effect is and how they actually coincide, how they mix. Oh, and there we go. Drop a little drop of paint on the canvas. Nothing to worry about right now in any way, shape or form. It will get covered. Now, what are we going to do with colours? Let's go back to this. So I'm starting light and I'm progressing through the colours, but I think I want to finish with darker colours around the edge of this particular pour. So I'm going to fill it up with just a few contrasts now. Again, making sure that we're maintaining copper rings as we do it. Trying to bring this out for our friend. Again, results may vary. There's no guarantees. So let's talk about paint volume now that we're heading towards full cups. So effectively, in terms of this volume, what I like to cover, I think I mentioned it in a prior video, but I didn't use any measurements. So a standard kind of level 2 canvas, you know, a 3/4 inch drop on the side of it, tends to call for about 6 ounces of paint. When I use something that has the 1.5 inch drop on the side, I find that obviously adds to area of paint. So for every square foot of canvas, I tend to allow for about 8 ounces of paint. Now I do get some waste, but I also get pretty solid coverage as well as a result. So on this particular canvas, you can see, or you can probably not tell the dimensions, but this is 24 this direction and is 20 inches this way. Now, what would that ordinarily call for if it was a 24 by 24? I would probably target 32 ounces of paint. Now, 2 full 16s obviously gives me 32 ounces. But right at this point, because of the missing 4 inches on the end of the canvas, even with a calculation for the additional drop, I'm going to keep it short and I'm going to keep it around about 30 ounces. So what I'm actually going to do with this particular one now is I'm going to finish it off with a real dark layer on the top. And hopefully that is perfect. And that is one of the first colours that we obviously pour out of it. Now, in order for me to get my copper line as well, I'm just going to put a little bit of phthalo in just for cheek. So a copper line, let's be sporadic. Let's get a little pour going. Doesn't have to be anything superb or massive. There you go. Perfect. I've got a little bit of a line straight across the canvas now, as you can see. And I'm going to actually start with the pour. I'm going to turn the cup this direction. Well, actually, I'm not going to start with a pour. I'm completely telling porcupines. No, actually, I'm going to start with a pour, and we'll use a different method to flip the cup. Because I could actually flip the cup on the canvas and just leave that sat there while I'm performing the ring pour. But there's quite a few ways to skin this particular cat, if you'll pardon the expression. Luckily, Bruce Lee, my cat's outside and didn't hear that. So, what kind of an area am I aiming for? Obviously, I want to make the most impact with this particular ring. So I'm going to start here. And let's see, apologies for operating in the shade, but let's see what we get as a result of slowly working through this pour. And again, I'm not the greatest at circles, or I'm not the greatest at maintaining a certain direction. What you'll find with me is I'll often switch part of the way through. But it's a very slow activity, this, for me. And again, this is down to the viscosity of your paint as well. You know, you want to see this kind of pooling in and mixing together and kind of pushing out. Now, what we can do is we can hold up for a second and we can let the paint just move out just a touch, and we can start again. So we can now introduce a little bit more pressure on this and start to increase our flow. And I'm working clockwise, but I started counterclockwise, and I'm going to switch back now again because for some weird reason, I just can't seem to maintain consistency in that regard. And switch back again. And as you can see, it's now flooding up towards our copper line. You know, we're getting a good amount of paint appearing on the canvas. It's a slightly thicker consistency than I would like for a ring pour, just to be frank. However, it's going on very, very beautifully right now. And because there are no such things as mistakes, as our friend Mr. Ross says, there are only happy accidents. Let's see whether we have a happy accident or whether it's per design. And I'm going to switch it around again now. So you can see we start to get a different contrast push out there. We're getting more of the phthalo coming in. Slow, slow business. And switch. So more lime green, and we're getting more of the light yellow green in there. Beautiful. And I switch again. We're getting lovely coverage. We're actually flooding the copper line, which is really funny, which we've kind of disappeared that. So maybe I should have added a little bit more copper paint. Not too concerned right now at all. What we're going to do is finish this up any second because we've got our light center. And there we go. Perfect. Oh, an interesting little drippity drop in the middle. So you can see now we've got a nice circle of paint on here. You know, it's all, you can see we've got many, many concentric rings. The copper's kind of nice there. We've got cells developing. Perfect. Okay, so the next step for us in this regard, and I'm not going to really drain this cup, or am I going to drain the cup? No, I'm going to leave it as it is. So the next step for us now is to get a piece of cardboard, a little piece of waste card, straight from the trash, there we go. And I'm going to make a 2-layer piece of card just to place under the cup. Hopefully I've got coverage. Let's see. That is real tight in terms of width. And I don't want to lose any paint, but then again, it's kind of a dirty pour. So it is what it is. It's in the name. Let's be brave. There we go. Fully customized painting tool available online from Amazon. $15 each. Superb. Okay, joking aside and facetiousness aside, you can see we've got some spread on this paint. I'm gonna just lift it in the middle, and I'm just pushing those circles out. You should see them just slowly going. Perfect. Now, what are we going to do here? Okay, we're going to come and we're going to dirty pour here so they hug up. So again, just make sure my cardboard is something like right. I'm going to bring the cup out and I am going to cover it the best I can. And what I don't want to do really is get too heavy on the top of it. So I want to make sure that I've got good coverage here, which we have. And then I'm going to do my absolute best to just flippity flip and then pull the card. There we go. I think that actually came out quite nice. And we've got a surreptitious copper vein there. That's lovely. Just as a result of our pour. Perfect. Perfect. Now, I said we're going to put them together, so I've given it a little bit of a circular movement. I could pop it a little, just let it spread. There we go. So there's a couple of ways you can do this with a cup. As you can see, I've just popped it. We're now getting a spread of copper. We're getting a spread of phthalo. And we've got, oh, the sweetest little pattern over the back here. With the mixture of lime and what looks like hookers. And now, boom, boom. We've lost it, but we've not, because she reappears. So again, just in the interest of paint and variance here on this side, I'm going to drain off over this side. Perfect. There we go. So looks like a right. Oh, that's it. I've got to show you that. That is absolutely beautiful. I wish at times I could dry the cups and keep them, because some of the interior finishes are just beautiful. Okay, so we've now got quite a bit of variance on our canvas here. One thing I did was check level on this. As you can see, I'm using a new covering. I'm using kind of a heavy duty craft paper covering. I've gone through using scrap cardboard and flip paper charts, flip chart paper. I've gone through quite a bit of it. But this is where I've landed. I was going to buy butcher paper, but apparently this is kind of resistant. We'll see when we come to scrape. Thus far on cleanup, it's actually looking pretty good. This paper is £50 in terms of weight per roll for an 800 by 36. So it's not lightweight paper by any stretch of the imagination. I'm putting it on, it felt perfectly thick. I don't think you actually need to go to butchers. So what are we going to do with this particular piece now? So I think I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to do a roll, get the canvas moving, and then we'll see which side it naturally gravitates towards. So time to make a mess, guys. See where we can get a flow going, or even weather actually. I want to run that canvas line. That copper line, should I say. Oh, it's looking good. This is just a part of the magic in itself, I have to admit. I find this just an incredible tactile process. Very, very kind of enjoyable, I think is the phrase I would use. I find it highly enjoyable. Very, very tactile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and drop a little bit down here. As you can see, we're now starting to get that center line developing. And what I want to do is maybe do a nice big sweep on this. So I'm going to keep it rolling in this direction. Then I'm going to sweep it across the bottom, because I absolutely love how this is developing. I'm not a big fan of the waste paint on the side, so this kind of trims it as we go now. Might just have to get a little bit tricky in terms of hands on canvas in a second, so apologies, and do some rotation. There we go. So we're now starting to get coverage down in this bottom corner and on this side. And I'm going to start to draw this back carefully. I'm going to start to draw this paint back. Oh, that's beautiful. I want to start to draw it back so it just subtly exits this canvas over the side. And again, it's nothing we can't patch up as we go through this. That is looking beautiful. We're going to get a little bit jiggery pokery with the canvas. Fantastic. And now putting pressure on the frame and pushing out. I would love to see what this sweep would look like if I bring it down here real deep. Hopefully you can see this, guys, but this is about the canvas and the effect of the painting, rather than, sorry, being able to film every detail for you. This really is very much about what. Perfect. 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 And this is going to come down this corner here to give me a beautiful exit. Oh, I want to stretch the phthalo. Perfect. And guys, she is, woo, he says, rubbing his arm on it. She is done. There we go. So now it's time for the stickiest of sticks to come out and to help us do our usual obsession of the corners. So down in this corner here, I've actually got quite, as you can see, I've got a light touch of paint. And I've got a light touch rolling off the center. So I'm going to use this mixed with the copper that it's got. Perfect. And again, all I'm doing is I'm just teasing it so it falls. It finds its own path, it finds its own way. As long as you kind of try and tease it to get coverage so it doesn't just run down in a big drip, it actually kind of gives you, there we go, like area coverage. Even touching it isn't a sin. Even just touching this isn't too much of a sin. For example, like that, I'm just teasing a blob of paint onto it and it's absorbing it into the actual rundown now. So it doesn't look any different than the original texture. That's a perfect run off there. Fantastic. Do I want to put more of this in? I actually do. Because I want to see a run of the copper. Wonderful, that corner is done. This corner is now looking on the dark side, so there we go. Wow, one hit. Very impressed with that. So let's do our walk across while we're here. The craft paper seems to be doing a beautiful job in terms of just holding up well with the ooh, this is interesting. So I've now got the breakout to the darker colours here rather than the light colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on the corner and I'm going to take the excess paint from around the corner area, or this particular, just this particular area where I have a certain colour runoff, and I'm going to apply that to maintain the dark within the corner that's actually naturally developed. Now, could I add a little bit of contrast to that? I could choose to. So I could choose to drop lime and a run of lime down here just to build out contrast on the corner. So what I'm actually going to do is I have the slightest wisp on the corner that I'm going to flood out now with darker paint. Perfect. That is wonderful. I actually might just do a quick pick up this side. And I want to just do a quick run out on that corner because I'm not happy with it. I'll just see where I can get some influence over there in terms of paint movement. There we go, wonderful. Just making sure we're not repeating any mistakes with positioning on the cups, because we do tend to snap it down pretty quickly when we think we've finished. Let's call up our friend the cloth. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I've got to adjust the cup on the back here, so bear with me with the noise as I make my way around makeshift island. And now I'm just going to finish this corner. It's got a beautiful copper on it. Looks absolutely lovely from where we are. I'm going to make my way around again. Excuse the noise. It's things like the paper, etc., that I have on the floor just to protect it. One or two areas have tarpaulins and that kind of thing, so it does make a little bit of a rustle as I make my way through, so apologies. There we go. Heck, hello. Okay, so I like that corner. I like this corner. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit of this paint, because I know there's an area here that I'm just kind of trying to tactfully reach over and collect paint. And just finish this corner off. Yeah, okay. Awesome. Perfect. So as ever now, it's time for a quick scrape around the edge. You know, let's get our paint that's falling off. You know, it always looks beautiful. Always looks beautiful. Let's get our paint that's rolling off. I think we've achieved our mission of copperization, for want of a better word. So I think we've achieved my lovely friend Kim's desire with this particular picture, but as ever, it's very, very subjective. Very subjective. And I'm always really interested to hear people's opinions, you know, what they think of a given piece. rather than just kind of assuming, you know, that somebody's going to like it, because art is very, very, as I say, very, very subjective. So let's have a little look around some of the paint on the tops. Okay, now for now that will do for me. So next step is to get our friend the blowtorch, and then we can start to bring the silicone oil through this particular piece. Perfect, so we've got the torch. Now it's time to work our way around. Okay, are we happy with what we see? Let's try. Okay, again, we're not burning the paint, we're not trying to dry the paint. We're trying to release the surface tension so the paint with the oil mixed in it can kind of push through and maximize that development. So nice smooth movement across the canvas, especially like when you're working on something that's slightly larger. Nice smooth movement, changing direction, making sure we're covering the edges as well, because obviously we want that continuation of cells. And I'm just going to work my way slowly but surely across it, keeping a few inches away from it. The flame isn't touching, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just heating the surface enough to burst the bubbles and to push the paint through. I can actually see the, as I look at it, I can actually see the bubbles dissipating as I'm working across with a torch. It's quite funny, you get a certain angle in the light and you can see the bubbles disappearing. So again, just working every area, and I will pop to the back in a second. For those of you that have noticed I've not been around there for a second, I certainly shall be. Again, forgive the rustle. Always great trying to work around an ill-equipped studio, especially with tripods. Oh, I just noticed we're missing a touch of paint on the back here, so let's deal with that. Make sure we've got some good coverage here. I just want to get the right roll off the knife. There we go. It is rolling slowly. Again, taking our time on this is a good thing. It just goes down to the end product. There we are, we'll give it a scrape while we're over the back. The waste paint here is absolutely beautiful, to be frank. Beautiful stuff. There we go. Apologies for whacking the tripod. So, back onto our painting. Again, moving, but slowly working across. Change direction. Got some beautiful copper poking through in the middle right now, starting to just rear its head. Even though I didn't use silicone in it, you actually find that you do get some beautiful pearls, for want of a better way of putting it, that do appear of some of the metallics. Up in this corner, for example, we've got some nice copper. Down in this corner, we've got a copper and lime and a copper and lime here. It's looking very, very pretty. I'm going to work this line, get the most out of that. There we go, that's looking real pretty right now. Very, very different contrast. Obviously the dirty pour has taken over more, but I was starting to see a lot of pretty areas developing in it that I wanted to use, and I was glad that, you know, this green transition didn't dominate too much of the canvas, but it's still there as a real nice detail, to be honest with you. Deep mix of greens, lovely transition to copper throughout. Yeah, very happy. Let's continue. More torching, less gassing, if you'll pardon the expression. There we go. And I just try and operate like some sort of little robot arm while I do this. Try and keep it consistent and level, and probably do a terrible job of it, but that's my net objective. I like to burn these, not burn, that's such a bad choice of words, apologies guys. I like to work these corners. When you buy the Michaels canvases, you know, from grade 2 to grade 3, they've got a real nice profile on them. Actually, I've got an old frame here from one that I tore out. This is a grade 2, just knock it for dust. This is a grade 2 canvas. Obviously there's the rear where they bead the canvas in. But then if you look, there's a profile on it because this is stretched across it where you get a beautiful rounded edge. And that in itself transitions to the painting and gives a real nice finish to the canvas. I can't argue strongly enough, you know, in terms of get the canvas you can afford. But if you're at a level where you're producing things like this where you're going to keep it, and you're not thinking you're going to have to scrape, repeat, etc., you know, and you're still very much learning your lessons, definitely try and invest in a good solid canvas. Definitely so. Now another trick for you while this settles, and this is well known I think throughout the art community, but sometimes you'll buy a canvas and it feels very kind of baggy on the frame almost. It doesn't feel taut, it doesn't feel tight. All you have to do is turn the canvas around and using a bottle that produces a spray filled with water. Don't soak the back of the canvas by any stretch of imagination, but say for example a canvas of this size, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprays. And what you'll find is that the actual water on the back will tighten the canvas. So before I do any of these, I always test the canvas because I don't want it to sag in the middle and gather all the paint and kind of end up a bit of a mess. So what I always do is make sure the canvases are taut, and that just takes a few minutes, a little bit of water and a little bit of attention. If you have paintings that are sagging, they can be brought back to tension by using that technique. So just a really, really useful little trick to know. Now looking at our picture here, I'm again probably going to give it a little bit of work, but in terms of cellular development, that's pretty impressive. I like it. Let's try and get a little touch more contrast in places. Oh, particularly at the back here where I've got copper poking through in the corner. Very pretty. Beautiful. Love it. So again, we're not burning the canvas, we're just heating the surface. We're encouraging the paint to come through and present itself. You'll only burn a canvas once, or you'll only burn the paint once, or get too close to it, trust me. I have done it. I'm very much an amateur in this game, as you'll see by some of my productions, etc. I have done it. How did I feel about it? I felt gutted. Because it was a painting that I really liked. I just got a little bit cack-handed. So we just maintain a little bit of discipline, and if we're not getting it on the first or second or third passes, continue. You know, we're not, the object is to not burn it. The object, in my opinion, is to slowly encourage this transition through the layers, and you'll see areas where you think, maybe I'll give that a little bit more. For example, this area here, you can see it's starting to develop, you know, shadows and shades within the dark green, within the the hookers and black. You'll see that. You'll see some copper presenting, the limes coming through, and the yellow green. So there may be areas that you want to focus on. Don't focus heavily, as in burn the backside out of them, but for example like this, you can give them passes that are multiple like this without causing too many issues. You know, just give it a chance, walk away, let it settle down again. I'm absolutely loving this picture. Kim, you might have a problem taking it from my hands, but no, joking aside, I'm loving it. Very, very quick, as you saw. Obviously the time is in the paint preparation, preparing your canvas, you know, preparing your environment to just be able to walk up, pour it onto it and twiddle your canvas around. I do spend an awful lot of time off camera just preparing paints and, you know, just getting things ready to go. One thing I would like to show you at some point is mixing up different mediums to give different effects. Now you can see that this here, hopefully you can see anyway, that this canvas looks awfully glossy. when the paint finish looks beautiful and shiny, that will, this sounds awful, but that will dissipate. As it dries, it'll dry to a matte finish. But again, as I've said before, we apply a gloss varnish and boom, it really fires all of this colour back up. You know, the coppers will be almost iridescent in the look. They'll change depending upon light angles that you're viewing the picture from. So these ones that are appearing here, for example, very subtle accents as you change angle in the darker green. We've obviously got a beautiful meeting point here of the ring pour, just meeting up with the dirty pour. You can see the combination of techniques there. And you can see that we did achieve our objective here of starting, you know, well, ending light in the center and working out, you know, with a darker surround. Fantastic, I love it. A little bit more and I think we are done on this particular video, guys. As ever, it's a pleasure to have you with me. I do intend to kind of demonstrate more techniques and more kind of approaches as we go. If you want me to provide a list of colours, you know, in the description, I'm more than happy to do that. Then you can kind of pick up the same materials and try and have a go yourself. Or think about your favourite colour combinations. Think about what sits well together and work from it on that basis. You know, not everybody, for example, like Kim, not everybody's favourite colour is green. There might be blues, there might be purples, there might be yellows, you know, there might be a rainbow or a plethora. Be creative, be imaginative. As you can see, just adding greens together there, we've almost got pinks and different effects from it. Whiter or light yellow areas. Really, really pretty. Okay guys, my name's Leachy. I love to paint. Thank you ever so much for being with me. Until next time, take care, be good.